Hello everyone, there we go. Just a technical glitch there, as usual. My computer keeps forgetting everything that I've got connected. So, should hopefully hear me this time. Oh, it's overloading. Testing. Hold on, I'm gonna check this out. It's way too loud according to my meters. My gain is too loud, or what? Let's try that. Is that better? I think so. Settings were all over the place. Then mute your mic. Oh, there we go. Now we should be all right. You should normally like sort these things out before you stream, but hey. I'm only 2 years into streaming and all this technology stuff, so why is this counter music on? Well, cheerful. Right, now I think I can say happily, hello everyone and welcome. It's Thursday, and I'm going to say it again in 2 minutes because maybe I've started this a little bit too soon. So let's check out. Is it the usual suspect? Off the Rails was the first one. I'm early, have a like, thanks. And Arvid, of course, is here as usual. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter, maybe below the hour for you, Arvid, so you can go to bed in good time. Nightmare Studio, hello. Avocado Fire, Falcor, Andreas Brillen, Jim Engström, hello. Jim Engström, my childhood friend, well, still a friend now, even in my slightly older childhood. Noise Crime, welcome, and Sapien. I shouldn't read everyone, I guess, but Twerk Taco as well. Jen. Right, I think Western music for space topic. Yeah, it's just a random playlist. Ola Jet Grove is around. It has arrived. Jerry Rogers. It makes me think of Jolly Roger. All right. You don't need to mention that every time. I do need to mention that every time because you're like the only friend that I've got in the chat, at least. Well, physical friend, if you know what I mean. Everyone's friends, I guess. So I'm not much into Unity, so honestly, I'm not sure if I'm gonna stay here too long. Hey, that's not the. That's why I was gonna try to keep it short. Maybe you'll realize as well that you're gonna switch from Godot into Unity. I was actually gonna model first and then import, and then I thought, well, I modeled stuff last week, so maybe I should just bring that in. Saves like dragging it out for another 2 hours, since I couldn't think of what to model for to import. I was thinking, okay, what should I model for a Unity little import thing? And then I thought, well, nearly every game, as much as I can think about it, it's like an animated character. If it's like a adventure game, platformer, I don't know, any game, I just kept seeing characters in front of me, and taking those take a little bit longer to model and animate and rig and everything. So it'll be a long stream in that case. And then we did, and I was thinking I'll do a spaceship, because then it's the easiest way. It's like a fixed thing, and then that mean doing it again, modeling. So, all right, Nightmare Studio. Opinions about Unity 2022. I know the official version is out. Is it stable? Do you know what? I don't really know that much, because we're still, we stayed on Unity 2018 for a very long time. And we're just now upgrading, and we're releasing the beta test for Line War now. And the reason why we couldn't, well, we could have upgraded earlier, but we wanted to wait for the new netcode to come out. I've said this about a billion times probably. And then it finally came out in March with the new netcode, and it's hardly documented at all. It's basically really poorly documented. And you have to search for information and try to figure out what the variable names mean and what things is. And then they've got a Discord channel server, which is arguably the people there are less there than I am in my own, which sounds quite scary. But we're finally getting to terms with it. But we've only upgraded to a later version of Unity 2021. It'll be the long-term support one. So I haven't actually used 2022 at all. And I've just installed the latest version now for this video. So it's going to be interesting to see. Is any Unity version stable? It's pretty good, I guess. There's, I mean, in terms of reliability for the games, it's been pretty solid, I think. So let's go for it. Let's just not waste any more time here. I'm sure everyone's got a busy Thursday, you know, like we all do. Let's bring up my screen here, and then if you remember last week we did these spaceships. where we did the modular spaceship design. And if you didn't see this, and if you're watching this in the past, you can check my channel history, the live streams, because we did these modular spaceship and we cheated a little bit because we did a funny UV unwrap, which we didn't actually unwrap because on a small spaceship it looks pretty good just with any texture. So I thought, okay, let's just import these, and I haven't planned this, which I probably should have done. So you can see how it is like when I start up Unity for the first time in a long time. I'm all over the show, and now you get to do that with me. Ha! So, but that's normal, I think. I'm glad you guys are liking the videos and the tutorials, and Z as well. Hello, Imphenzia, finally made it. Good. Do at Imphenzia if you want to ask any specific questions. I'll try to catch those. If not, just sit back, chill out, and relax. Watch the stream. Okay, so we did this last week. Check it out in the replay history or whatever. And I was going to export these, and sometimes, I mean, we could export these as objects. I guess that's the first thing we could do. That's the simplest way to do it. And then we'll do the modular ones secondary. So we'll pick one of the spaceships. Maybe we'll do that one, just out of randomness. Because I'm going to set up a material as well. And maybe we'll do, I'm just going to figure out, if I do Alt-G with that selected, it snaps it back into center. When you export stuff from Unity, it's always good to have it centered in Origo, because otherwise when you import it, it'll be somewhere else. It's not a disaster, but you should really try to do that. I usually create little script things for that, actually. And I just realized now, when I did Alt-G, it actually reset it. Most of the origin points are in the center there. So when I do this and do Alt-G to reset the position, it's actually not, it put the origin there for everyone, but I had moved that one offset a little bit, so that's a bit dangerous to do. I should put screencast keys on. N screencast keys and show them. Hopefully you can see them now, yeah. Oh, we already got some questions here. Mainstream, need to make some banana for scale so we know how large those chips are. We'll find out, actually. 1 unit is 1 meter, so these are going to be tiny things. Imphenzia, we've got Jules Wombat. Do you export using Python scripting? Sometimes I do. If I'm just going to do like a quick Ludum Dare project, or I have just 1 or 2 objects, I do just manually export it as FBX files. If I'm going to do massive exports, like bigger projects where I need multiple, I usually do write a custom Python script to export it. And usually the Python script resets the position of everything, and you can basically have them all around the scene like that, and it'll go through all the objects and move them, so you don't have to do that manually. But then I guess what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to reset the pivot point for all of these, because I don't really want them to be like the pivot point for that one. If I rotate this, you can see that it's like there, not so smart. So I'm going to maybe select all of these. I think that's I've done it manually all these years like this. Like I've selected this one, right-clicked, set origin. And we're going to have a problem here actually too, because if I do right-click and set origin to surface, you can see that it breaks, and it's because I've got the mirror modifier on it. So that could cause a little bit of a problem. So maybe for this one, I'm trying to think. I mean, ideally, we should really design these in Unity instead. So maybe I'll... and then the wings are needed to be mirrored, because they... Like, you can flip one of these. But if you flip a wing, then it would... Like, if you rotated it, it wouldn't work. So you need to have mirrored versions of the wings. You could also scale -1 in Unity. That will flip them. But that could create some other issues. So... I'll just have to figure out. Shift-C puts the cursor there. And just making sure that I'm not, like, that people can hear me and stuff. I'll move it manually for now first. Here. Or we can do, right, can we do this? I'm trying to think. Move. I thought there was a way to move stuff to, like, to the cursor. The entire selection move. Maybe someone knows of that. Because Alt-G resets it, but that resets them all individually. Let's just move it manually. First, let's just try to export it and see what happens. So select all of those objects, and maybe we should name them a little bit nicer, because their names are actually carried through. So we'll do spaceship module, I don't know, maybe body 01 or something. Come up with a naming scheme. And then I'll just do the prefix there. You don't have to have a prefix, I just tend to use it. Engine. Wing. And that's all of those, yeah. And then we've got, I don't know what this could be called. Body 02, because I don't really know what it is. We've got some tense music coming on. Maybe nose. Or like, I don't know, what we would call this? Mesh. I don't know. And then nose. And then a mini wing here, maybe. Okay, I think that's all of the objects for this one. They should be here now. If I move, shift select all of those, G, move. No, I've got some more stuff here. Sometimes I do this, and don't be afraid to do it. Mark all of those and press H to select them, and that hides them, but it doesn't delete them. So I don't know what we're going to call this. Bat wing. Body 04. And now if you do Alt-H, it unhides all of those that you hid. So it's, I think there's an isolation mode. This one we can get rid of. Now I'm going to save it, and then let's just export and see what happens. So I'm going to mark all of those objects and see none of these are called like cube or anything, even though we like the cube name. Export FBX. And usually if it's not an armature, this is what I do. Maybe we'll just go to... Okay, so this is going to be funny. This song that's on now, it's a chip music, and I made it. And Jim, who said I shouldn't be mentioning it all the time that we're friends, I actually made this song a chip music, and it's called I'm Going to Gym Now. Annoying, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to show chip music. Very annoying, but I like it. So I'm going to do shift move to cursor. We can do it. Actually, let's do that first. Then that was a good tip. So if it's over here, shift S, move to cursor. Usually I do it the other way around, so that's good. Selection to cursor, keep offset, I guess. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Did it get loud? I think it's lower now. Yeah, it's old mod. Yeah, selected objects that's rad. So let's go again. FBX. So selected objects, and usually if you don't have armatures, this has worked very well for me through the years. Just do apply transform. That'll fix the rotations and everything when you import it. And we could argue not to bring in animations. And another thing I change here. Oh, this has been a while, I realize. Apply scalings. I do FBX units scale. So that's it. And then we'll create a folder. We'll go to desktop, create folder, Spaceships. And keep it more tidy than I am. And export. So now we've exported those. And we're going to start up Unity now. And I've downloaded the Unity version 2022. I think since they introduced the Unity Hub, it got a little bit confusing, but it's you get used to it in the end, especially if you don't create new projects all the time. But when you create, let's do cancel here. When you come in, I went to installs and I installed a new editor. And usually these are the recommended ones. We're upgrading to this one for LineWar, the long-term support one for Unity 2021. They don't have a 2022 long-term support yet. That usually comes after the summer sometime, maybe in September or so, October. So I'm going to use, but I'm still going to use, this is going to be future-proof, this video. So let's go for another version anyway. So I installed the 2022.1.4 or F1. So, and after you've done that, you go to projects and you create new project. And here's another catcher. It defaults to like a long-term support editor here. So if you don't see the core or templates that you want, you might want to change this one to the one that you just downloaded. You don't want to go for the alpha version or the beta, which I can delete. I'm going to go for that one. And also, I'm going to go for the core one because I don't really need any sample content. So I'm going to go for this 3D URP. So these, touched on these before a few times. The 3D core is the traditional render pipeline that's always been in Unity forever. And then there are two other ones. It's the universal render pipeline and the high definition render pipeline. And HDRP is quite tricky to use. It's got the most pretty visuals and the most customizability. And the shadows always, I think, look better there, and the atmosphere effects and everything. But it's quite tricky to get it right. And I'd say that this one is the one that's most similar to how Unreal Engine looks out of the box. But for some reason, the way the lighting and stuff works in Unity HDRP, I've always struggled to really get it right. It's with the exposure and everything. It's got auto exposure and high dynamic range and all sorts of stuff. And it could be time consuming, and you could spend a lot of time. And usually for a line work, we're still using this one, actually, the good old render pipeline. But the reason why I'm going to go for a universal render pipeline now is because I want to use shader graph, and that does not, it wasn't supported in this one anyway, back when I used it. So I'm going to go for the universal render pipeline here. So let's go for that. And let's see. I need to just, I don't want to, oh, do I need to download templates? There we go. Spaceships. There we go. Let's see. If you got any questions, do @Imphenzia. And then I see it in orange. Oh, good morning from New Zealand, Brendan. You're way ahead of us now because it's the next day for you. It's only 7 o'clock here. Okay, interesting nightmare. So you took you a while, but you got used to it, and everything's logical and easier. Good to know. Maybe because we're gonna upgrade at some point line work to one of the render pipelines. So, and it's we're doing it for powerful PC machines mainly, or for PCs. So it would make sense to go to it, but I'm a little bit scared of the extra overhead that it'll take with the shader work for it. And this is the usual wait here now, of course. Yeah, Jules, you said it. Wait 1 minute and 30 seconds, and that's on a fast PC with those M2, whatever they're called, the drives that are mounted directly on the motherboard. And then we're looking at 18,000 files, and this is for a core project without the sample files. Let's just look again, just for a laugh, how many files it is. I always like to joke around about this because I think it's ridiculous. This is where Godot comes in so nicely. Godot. Let's see. Oh, where did I create it? Waiting. I like this as well. Oh, this is not the one I wanted to resize. Ah, what happened? It made my... Okay. I resized an unresizable thing. So this is not normal. I've got a hotkey that resizes the windows whether they want to or not. So this is not Unity's fault. It shouldn't be looking like this. But it's interesting. The materials you used in your project were creating using an older version of the universal render pipeline. You must upgrade them to be compatible with your current URP. I think that's a bit funny and amusing considering I just installed it. How could it be outdated if I just installed it? And then I don't actually know where I saved it. So projects, Unity Spaceships, here we go. D:, projects, Unity Spaceships. Let's have a look now at the size and let's make fun out of it. Right click, properties. So this is the biggest laugh the Godot people will have. So, oh, they've increased it now. I thought it was 18,000 files. So a blank project without any sample content, we're looking at 25,250 files in 1,597 folders. And the blank project here is 1.29 gigabytes on disk for the extra allocation there. Isn't that incredible? So there we go. Still a blank Unity project it is. It's nice that you don't get all that sample content. So the first thing I'm just gonna drag in, let's see, I'll just make sure that you can actually see it here too. So spaceships here. I have to rearrange my desktop. Oh, what happened there? And we should try to keep it a little bit tidy here. So maybe here, right click, create folder, and let's call that meshes. It's my go-to name for those. And then I'm just gonna drag this one in. And then I'll drag it into the scene. If I drag it here into the hierarchy. So there's our spaceship, and we're not utilizing the modules really now, because if I rotate these, you can see that they're not really reusable in that way. Plus, we don't have the material yet. So usually I create my materials independently. So let's create, oh, this is gonna be a while because I haven't done this for a while. So let's right click, do a folder. And can you even see what I'm doing? Yeah. Here, I have to watch out because I've got my face down. And I've got some self-intersecting stuff. Usually I ignore those polygon warnings there. It tends to work anyway. So I'm gonna drag in, I have this card 1 texture. This is the one that we used for the material, if you can remember. So that was just a random, let's see, this one. I just snapped it off one of those public domain sites so I could get any texture, and that's how we cheated to do the UV unwrapping for it. I'm gonna right click here, if I can hit my marks, and we're gonna do a new shader graph, URP, and we're gonna do a lit shader graph because we wanted to support shadowing on lit. Doesn't do that. And then we'll call it common. That's, or no, we'll do spaceship. So tiny, the text, I can't even see it myself. I think it supports, so you probably can't even see this because it's, I wonder if I can scale the menu here a little bit. UI scaling. I think I'll scale it a bit because I'm running on quite a high resolution. Have to restart it, but let's try 125. Save it, restart Unity and see how that works. I think that came a few versions ago, didn't it? Oh, okay, we've got some. Oh yeah, I remember that, Jim. Keyboard not found, press F1 to continue, that's good. Oh, okay, so Mega Wigan, Imphenzia, please share some wisdom. Okay, right there it failed. Well, I'll say something about, I'll translate that to, about folder structure. We're getting close to finishing with our first Unity game and wish we had folders per object instead of all meshes in one folder. Very good observation. So I usually, for small project, I usually do this. I keep meshes, materials, textures, because my workflow then is usually I'll import a bunch of objects so I know where to find them. And we're trying to do a more domain-driven folder structure for Line War now. So if we're coming up with something that's quite related to each other, then we create a folder structure for that separately. And that could, and it sounds confusing in the beginning, but for example, at a city or a town or a, I don't know, depot or something for energy storage or something, the idea is that we create a folder for that, and then the FBX file will be in there, the sound effects for that one will be in there, some of the script, not all of them, because sometimes they're tied together, so you try to find the best location for it. And workflow-wise, that seems to work a little bit better when it comes to structuring it. And then I'm usually not so good with assemblies and stuff as well, but for our project, my code dev is quite good and strict on that stuff. So we separate the core logic and server logic and client logic into different assembly definitions altogether so that they don't compile. But for smaller projects, I wouldn't bother too much about that. But it's also nice to try to get all third-party stuff compiled into DLLs instead, and not mixing that up with your code searches and stuff. So yeah, probably common shared folders as well. Yeah, some of it. It's a difficult thing. I mean, everything that comes to categorizing stuff, like regardless on how you do it, it's going to be a problem, especially if it needs to end up in one folder. Otherwise, we try to use a lot of meta tag stuff, so you can tag objects, not with the Unity tags, but a lot of the stuff that we work on in our task management and stuff system. Instead of categorizing into one specific category, we tag it with different tags. But Unity tags, funny enough, only supports one tag per object, or at least it did too back in the day. Let's see, Jason Greenwood as well. Does the coupling of objects to folder structures make it more difficult when you have generic functions? Yeah, I mean, it is tricky because first of all, knowing where to look is one thing. So I wouldn't say like project-wise. Sometimes you come into, if you split it with different assembly definitions, then you have to make sure that you import and use that namespace and stuff. But I've found as well that this this search thing, so if you're scattering in a folder structure, that makes more sense from a project perspective or a game architecture wise into the different domains, maybe, because I used to have one big UI folder. Now we don't really do that. We have different folders for, but if it's like a settings pop-up or something, or if it's like a reusable multi-button that we've got a lot with there, that's like a domain that's contained, so scripts and graphics and stuff that goes into there. But it's a transition as well. We're moving into that new structure. We can't do everything in one go, so it takes a long time. So luckily enough, we're only 2 people working, so we sort of up to speed on pretty much where most stuff are. But don't forget that you've got this search one, which is really good too. So if you've got even if like normally I'd expect all the meshes to be in here if you had that simple structure. But if it is scattered in different ones, the search feature is super good. So you just type in spaceship there, and it'll bring everything up. So even if it's in different folders and stuff, you can usually find it pretty fast. And you can also see down here which catalog it is. So it's pretty good. So I created this, I double clicked on the shader graph here, and it's a bit intimidating. I've never really gotten to terms with this style. It feels like it's using so much space on the screen for some reason, this compared to the Amplify shader editor. But what I'm going to do, if I can remember this, we want to create, see, can I drag texture in? Yeah, that worked. And then we're going to plug the RGB into the base color here. And that's all we're going to do for now. That's all she wrote. Save asset, you have to remember up here. And hopefully that should be all right. And let's see, go back to my scene. And then here's the material now. Or I thought anyway. Nope, I need to create a material. Create material. Space. So this is the shader now. The shader graph, and this is the actual material. So I'm going to change this one to, and it'll be down in this drop down, the shader. We're going to go to shader graph somewhere there. And spaceship, and then drag it to here. And then I think we can multi-select these, don't we? Select all of those and drag this spaceship into, okay, I need to do this, and then drag it into the material folder there. And now all of the modules got the correct material there. So that's how simple it is to do that. I should probably also show about if you wanted to have emission. So if I'm going to bring up, let's do that for a laugh. Oh, here's I just put the thumbnail together. So if I'm bringing this one in, I'll just drag that same texture in here. And then I'm going to make all the red stuff shine now with just to get the bloom effect on it. So what I'm going to do, let's just pick this one. Let's point sample. So if you don't have this one, the Photoshop, you could use any Photoshop like tool, I don't know, GIMP or something, or an online editor. But I just want to have the Magic Wand tool, and we're going to do 32, not contiguous. Contiguous. So I'm just going to mark all the red stuff. You can select by color, I guess, as well, but I'm just going to go like this for now. And maybe we'll cheat a little bit, expand by 2 pixels, and then shrink. Contract by 2 pixels again. So this stuff, I'm going to do Control C now and Control V. Control Shift V, because then it pastes it in place. And then I'm going to do this, mark everything. There's a billion ways to do this. Do Control Shift N, new layer, then right click, fill, and black. So this is going to be my emissive texture. Let's see how that works. I haven't tried this before, like on this texture or anything, but let's go Alt Control Shift S to save it as a PNG, I guess. Save, and then do desktop spaceships. Spaceship, or we'll do, yeah. I don't even know if I spelled that correct, but that doesn't really matter. Luckily enough, it doesn't judge how you spell. So now I'm going to drag this texture in here. And now if I go into the double click on the shader graph again, I'll drag this one in here, and hopefully now I should be able to plug this RGB into Emission. And then remember, save asset. And we'll go back to scene, and that should hopefully start to glow soon. But what we're going to do, we're going to boost the emission a little bit, because usually if it's just by 1, it doesn't really, so we're going to multiply it. And to do that, I'm going to see if I remember this one. I'll create a float called Emission. I did think I spelled it correct, yeah, because it's there. So there's a float. I can right click on this. No, I cannot, but I have to expose this somewhere. Expose this there, yeah. So let's drag it in here. And then there's loads of shortcuts here. I haven't used this one so much, so but space is a shortcut there, and then we'll do multiply. I think there's like nifty ways that you can just drag out and have it auto touch and all sorts of stuff. But we're gonna plug the emission in there, RGB there, and output to emission. And then here we can do, I think you can range specify that one, but never mind. Save asset. Hopefully now when we look at the material, we can see the emission here, can we? 2, we should have really defaulted it to 1 or something. Never mind. And now when we ramp this up, you can see that it starts to glow with the emission there too. So there we go. Let's see if we've got any questions. If you don't have any questions, do @Imphenzia, and I'll catch it. You discussed it about folder structure, that's good. I would love to be able to make, this is not got @Imphenzia, but you got space in your name, so I'll read it. Yeah, I would love to make a space survival game. But I suck at modeling. Well, you come to the right place. And coding and everything else, but it's a good way to start then. Okay, so if we look at the game view, so we don't really need this is going to be in space. So main camera, I'm just going to go, let's see, they've moved that a little bit. Maybe it's in environment now. So window, general, rendering, lighting, and then you can dock this one up here. Okay, that was if I was going to disable fog. Environment there. Take away the skybox, none, and also environment lighting. That can stay, I guess. Now we should go main camera, and in the inspector here, background, solid color, and black. And then we'll do just top view down, I guess, on this one. So camera selected there, bring it up. And R is not rotate, E is. But you can hold the control key and that'll snap the rotation. We'll do 90 degrees. W to move. And there's the spaceship. And if we do game view there, maybe we could do, it should be possible to do a slider thing here. So double click on the shader graph again. Emission. And should be some settings for this. Graph settings. Nope. I'm surprised. Shouldn't it be a slider? Let's see, Jules says, so Imphenzia, so how would you animate some of the imported meshes? E.g. flapping wings or rotating wheels for imported vehicles. So for cars, I'd import the wheels separately and make sure that the origo is at the center of the wheel. So when you rotate it in the game, it'll spin. It's very important. And to animate, usually I do most of the animations in Blender and export it as keyframes, because then I get the full control to do all the keyframing. And in rare cases, I animate it inside of Unity, because then you could definitely use, and I've done that too, with the animator component, where you do window, like, see, animation, animator, and that's the graph for it, animation. And then you could keyframe everything and create an animation for the wings, but the only time I've actually done it, let's see, so all the different type of character movements, if it's folding wings of airplanes and everything, I tend to do all of that stuff in Blender, and then I export it as animations for that particular object, because I find the keyframing animation is better inside of Blender. But then in some cases I've animated it using this component here, the animation component, because it's pretty much the same type of keyframing, but it's a little bit maybe more restricted. If I save this one, we could do an example. Maybe if I do this object. First I'm going to do right click and do prefab. I'm going to do unpack completely, because I don't want, otherwise when I select it, it selects the root object all the time. I don't need to be one of those. So if I select this one now, first of all, I can't really do it. So we're going to re-export these objects, I think, as individual components instead. Because now when I rotate it, it'll be like this. But if I wanted to, I guess I could put on, let's say it was on the wings or something. Let's say we wanted to be able to fold them forward like that for whatever reason. Maybe it's got a takeoff thing. I think I would create here and then just call... and you can create folders here as well. Unity will automatically fix them. So animations. Then we'll just call it test anim. And now when you can do stuff like add a keyframe. If I do this one, record, can you see that one? It's just behind my face there. And so if I record this one and then slide it back, you could do this. And when you play it, it'll animate it inside of Unity. And you can copy keyframes here. So it's very similar to the way it works inside of Blender if you animate things. But then again, it's in more rare situations that I do it that way. If all the building structures that are animated inside of Line War, where it's constructing a building, for example, where it's sending up the base plate, it's raising the walls, it's having a crane and everything that attaches things. All of that stuff I did inside of Unity because I needed full control of different objects and how they appeared and disappeared. But then all the characters, the way they aim their weapons or the way they move and stuff, that's all animated inside of Blender. So let's cancel all this. We don't need that animator. Oh yeah, wheels are definite separate objects. Rotate in Unity, correct. So there we go. And let's go for the game view. We just grab this one and move it to see what it looks like a little bit. We rotate it around the Z-axis. There you go. You got that close. Oh yeah, what I wanted to see was this. How come I didn't get a slider for this emission thing? It's very, very not nice. I should definitely be able to. So mode, slider. There we go. Default. So this is, I don't hardly use so often. And when I do, it's like months between. So default value is 1. I guess you should do minimum is 0 and go all the way up to 10. And save asset, game, and then now we should have a slider for this emission instead. Yeah. Oh, and you could even go stronger, I think. Let's see, let's allow it to scale all the way up to 100. It's going to be very strong. It's going to overblow. The nice thing with the URP is that you don't need to import any post-processing stack the way you do in the traditional pipeline to get the bloom. I thought the bloom process is a bit tricky, so but it comes with a preset in this one. Oh, didn't I say? Oh, I didn't save the asset. So this is what I keep forgetting. Save asset as soon as you change something. Maybe you can auto-save it, I'm not sure. And go back to game. Look here, and then emission now. It can glow a lot. Another thing we can play around with here is in this shader, and this is what I was showing last week as well when we modeled these. And the fact is that you can... oh, now I have to remember how to do it just. But if I do space and we do UV, I would have thought. Usually I search for stuff like this. So geometry UV, let's try that on first. Nope, we don't want that on. Space UV. We don't need that one. I need the sampler UV. Why don't I get this one? Tiling and offset, that's the one I want. And then I'm going to plug this one into here, somewhere. Here, this one. UV. And I think this one. I might be totally wrong. Oh, it's still there. That's good. And now we can introduce some slider here as well. We'll do one called, and we can do maybe a vector 2 actually, because we're going to do X and Y. So offset, this one will delete. Create another vector 2 and call this one tiling. And then we're going to make these into sliders as well. And how do we do that? We want, okay, can we not do that for these? No. Okay, so you can't do that, unfortunately, for vectors, but okay, never mind. It's okay. So offset here, plug that in there, and tiling. But we can change the default, can we not? Yeah, so 1, 1, tiling, or the offset should be 0, 0. And save asset, and now we should have some control over the way the spaceship looks here. So if I go back into the spaceship material and then we play around a little bit with offset, and you can see you could animate this into some weird, doesn't look very metallic then, but it looks a bit sci-fi space-like. And you could change the Y. And this is because we texture mapped it in such a generic way, so we can get like all sorts of weird looking stuff on this one. And another one we can do is the tiling. And this is a float, so you can change the tiling into a very complicated. I think it looks less good when it's super complex like that, but if you go this way, usually you can get pretty cool effects. You can go down to 0. I don't know, maybe there. Change the tiling for this one too. And play around. So you can get definitely different type of looks to your spaceships. And you can imagine if you just had, even with the same texture, you could get a lot of different spaceships looking like they're from different factions or something by just using the same thing and just panning it. Darkness. That looks pretty cool. I could play around with this forever. I just love like seeing all the different variations. And then I go, oh, this one I want to save forever. Oh, that one. Oh, this one looks actually really cool. Well, I think so. I like those, the way those just ended up. I love random stuff, the way it just, well, you don't have to, you take credit for doing random stuff that works out. If I go for the camera, we can change the field of view, maybe like that. So again, it probably doesn't look so good when you zoom in. But okay, but okay, but okay. Oh, zoom in on the ship. It's because, so I am zooming in, but it doesn't look so good when it's zoomed in. Because you're not meant to play a shoot 'em up game like this close, are you? So then it doesn't look as cool. It's in the details when it's small. I think I'm gonna reset to the way we were. And if we zoom in this one, change the field of view a bit. There you go. All right. Save asset is the new E to extrude. Yeah, might be. So the thing is, we can't really do so much modular. So I've already done 40 minutes here, but so this is a pretty fixed spaceship now, and we could do some customizing. Like this one, for example, if I select that one, go into the scene view, we could control D. We could do quite funny stuff here as well, but on the central modules, you're quite flexible to do all sorts of weird stuff. Scale it up as well. And I don't know. The problem you're going to run into is if you do this with the wings now. Plus the offset of these ones are not so good for it, so we're going to change it for the next one. And for the wings, if you wanted to change the wing configuration, these are into one object. So let's just make sure this one's, well, let's delete that one, the weirdo. Save it, go back into Blender. And here's the other one. And then what should we do? We'll make a copy of this one so I don't wreck it. Then we're gonna probably apply and see what the best thing is here. Right click on that one, set origin to volume. Just trying to think. So the engine, you would only need, that's a symmetrical one, so you only need one engine. And I can delete this, delete. And then I'm gonna get rid of the mirror modifier because we don't need that one. Right click, set origin to volume, and Alt G to center it. I'm gonna rename this one and just call it module. I'll just use a naming prefix different there. Engine. So that one's done. We can hide it. We'll use this one. That one's pretty good. I can delete these two because we're just going to do the modules now. Right click, set origin to center volume. Alt G, center it. F2, just call that. What do we call it? Module body 02 plus. Hide it. And have we got the mirror modifier on this one? Yeah. I don't think I deleted it for the other one, but it should be alright. I'll have to apply this one actually. So Control A when you're hovering over it. Right click, set origin, center volume. And then we just do module body 1, hide it. And do the same for this. Right, okay. Apply the mirror modifier. I'll do it on all of them first. Control A to apply them. And then right click origin to volume. There we go. Oh no, that's not good either. Surface, doesn't matter. Alt G. Module. So this is probably a better way to do it if you're going to import and reuse this module. I did about 100 of these and that can create a huge amount of spaceships, believe me. So that one's done. Hide it. Right click. Oh no, we have to. Oh, that was right click, center, Alt G, right click. Nope. Gonna do F2 to rename it. Module, hide. So here's where the interesting thing comes in. We have to separate these into different objects. You could separate them in Unity as well. And I'm a little bit torn. I'll show you both ways actually how to do it. Now I'm gonna tab into edit mode. Or first we'll apply the mirror modifier if I didn't. Control A. Tab into edit mode. A to select all of them. Key and separate by loose parts. And same here. A, key, separate by loose parts. Apply this mirror modifier. A, P, and separate by loose parts. The reason why you can't just export one wing and rotate it is because if you rotated this wing, it would face the other way. But I'll show you how to do it. And we only need one of these wings, I think, even though they have different texture mapping there. We'll just grab one of them for now. So I'm going to do, and here you want to put the pivot point not in the center of it. Usually you want to put the pivot point where it's going to rotate around. So on this wing, I'm going to put the pivot point here. So I select that face, do Shift S cursor to selected, right click, or tab out of edit mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Because now this is usually how you want it. When you rotate it, you want it to rotate around that attachment point. And I think what I'll do is Alt G to reset it here. And I'll show you how to do it with just one wing first, I guess. So, can you force the modules to be batched? How do you mean batched? Do you mean Unity batched 3D graphics wise to perform the performance, or do you mean to export all the modules in a batch manner? I'm guessing the later. Ever did anything with attachment points? Nope. What type of attachment points? Is that in Blender or in Unity? And Fabio as well. Does Unity support kind of model explosion out of the box? No, it doesn't. The way I thought that was super cool with Unreal Engine, the way that it had the fracture effects inside of the Unreal Engine. I was very impressed by that. So you'd have to, in Unity, there are two ways to do it. One of them is to fracture your objects yourself in Blender and export all the objects. And when something breaks, you replace that prefab with a split up one and you apply the explosion physics. That's the way I've always done it. So, and then I also found a Git repository with a third-party add-on which breaks an object into multiple chunks and calculates it on the fly. And that worked pretty good, but it was a little bit slow. Okay, so performance in Unity. Yeah, so one of the benefits by using the same material and meshes that have lower, I think, than 400 or 500 verts or something, if they're using the same material and if they have fewer vertices than about 500 or so, it'll automatically batch in Unity for performance. And that's why I always try to reuse the same material as much as possible. So there are some exceptions to that rule, and one of them is if you created characters with a skinned mesh renders, they do not batch. So even if you're using the same material on many characters, they will not batch in that type of dynamic batching. And static batching would only apply if you've got static objects that didn't move. So it's not so good. It's not so useful, but I found it to be quite performant when you use the same material anyway, and for the instancing. And you can also tick instancing for the actual material as well, and objects. That could boost the performance, but not always. I've actually done some testing, and sometimes you would have thought that instancing would like be so superior, and then I get surprised sometimes when it isn't. So okay, so that one, F2 to rename this one, just call it module wing. Okay, I don't want to have the 003. And this one I'm going to do left, because when you look from the behind here, it's the left wing. So we'll hide that one. And these I'm not even going to bother with, because we can just do that. This one I'll do though. So same thing, tab into edit mode, select that face, Shift S, cursor selected, right click, set origin to 3D cursor, F2. So again, this is usually Python script if I've got like 100 modules or something. Module underscore L for left. Sometimes I use period. And one more time here. We'll hide that one, hide that one, hide that one. Right click, Shift S, cursor selected, tab, right click, set origin, 3D cursor, and F2, rename it module underscore L. So now we've got these ones. I'm gonna unhide these. These are our new modules, and Alt G to reset all these locations there. And select those, and then we're going to do File, Export, FBX, Selected Objects, FBX Unit Scale, Apply Transform, and okay, so now I named that one stupidly, so because it wasn't really a module, it was like exported as full ship. And I could have exported it straight into the folder structure, but I didn't. That's one thing that I think works really good with Unity. You can just export it and save it into the file structure, and Unity will automatically import it. But now I'm going to drag this one into the meshes folder. Oh, missed it. Modules here, and then we'll drag those into the root. I'll hide the spaceship for now. And they already got a material with them for some reason, but I'm still going to change this to the material spaceship. There, we got the emission. So now these, and again, right click, prefab, unpack completely. Now we don't have any prefab modes here. So usually now you could start to design your spaceships and then save it as a prefab. So if I got that module there, I can drag it into there, Control D to duplicate it, and maybe scale it down, R to scale. Okay, and that's one, W. I don't know, I'll just do some random stuff here. Maybe we'll do something with the... Oh, that's the engine. So since the engine is symmetrical, you could just place it manually, and then I'll move this one. We'll do one side first, I guess. And there, I don't know, I'm just placing these now. Or should we do like a thing here? Control D. Rotate. No, it's E to rotate. Come on, save me. Control and snap it to 90 degrees. I don't know why I'm doing this, but. So now we're in a situation where, luckily enough, that one's still symmetrical, so you could get away with it. And sometimes if I have to do it manually, so last time I created an editor instead to do this. But if I were to design them manually in here, I could look at that. And you only do this for so many times before you realize I'll just make myself an editor instead. But I'm going to change the rotation now to 90 degrees. And then you can just take away the negative point there. And that sort of mirrors it in a manual way. This one we can move to the front there. And this one we'll put somewhere here as well. Oop. What did I just move? I moved something else. I don't even know what that was. Global volume. Bye-bye. Don't want to move you. Okay, never mind. Can leave that. So there we go. That's the little front wing thing. And then we could put some fins on, like the country fins. Always want fins on a spaceship. They, I shouldn't be stereotypical, but why would fins be on it? Spaceship, I don't know. Right. Okay, so we'll rotate this scale, bring it down. There you go. Woohoo! Big thing. So here comes the problem then. If I were to try to do the same thing, luckily enough that one was symmetrical, but this one isn't. So the engine we can do because it's symmetrical, so let's just copy it, take away the negative space, and we are right there. So that one was easy. This one's the tricky one. Control D. If I do the same, let's try it just so you can see. If I move this one there, it goes like that. So that's no good. And if I rotate it 180 degrees, it's facing backwards. So it nearly worked, but it's facing the wrong way. And there's a trick in Unity which you can actually apply this. And that's by scaling it negatively. And I think there's a recommendation against that, but I can't remember what it was. So if I do -1 there, it actually scales it negatively. And I think you run into problems if you're going to have children of this wing. I think that's when you run into problems. But otherwise, I think it sort of works. So this one as well, we'll do Control D, change the negative to positive, and then we're going to scale it to negative. That was already scaled, so that one I've done on a different minus. Hardly saw any difference there, but I think that worked. Yeah. The other way to do it would be, in that case, to, and this is how I usually do it. I do this one, I'll do Shift D to duplicate that one. So I've got, and then I rename this one _R. Tab into edit mode. Oh no, I don't actually. How do I do this? I usually do, I scale -1 here. But then I think I've got backface culling, should be on. When I do Control A now to apply this one on scale, it inverts it, see there? Because I had this. Where did it go? There. Backface culling. So it could be tricked. If I imported this in Unity now, it would be inverted. Not recommended. So you can mark those and do Shift N to flip the normals on it. And then I would export this one instead as a right wing. So let's do that. Let's export. You can do this. So you can mark them, all of them again. Since I haven't changed any other ones, so I can do File, Export, FBX. And then instead of doing this one now, I'm actually going to go to the folder, to Projects, Unity, not Cowboys. I'm going to Space Cowboy. Assets. And now I can just overwrite that one. So Modules. And it shouldn't make any difference here. No, it does not. And this one now, we should be able to replace this one with a different mesh here. So let's try it. And we have .R there, I'm guessing. Yeah. And now it's flipped because I've scaled it -1. But then if I do 1 on the scale now. So this is probably the preferred way to do it instead, because now you have no negative scales. I think I ran into problems when you have weapon attachments and stuff. If you scale it by -1, you run into some issues. It works for wheels pretty good in Unity when you have cars, because you don't really attach many things to the wheels. But for the wings, you probably want to have those. That's another thing you can automate and stuff. And we could also try one thing. Let's drag that other texture that we had in. That's maybe a last thing. Bike. We had this bike texture as well. I can't remember. Don't think that one looked as cool, but. And we should be able to also expose these. How do we do that? Right click, convert to. Nope. Hold on. Want to repaint. So, oh yeah, here. Plus. Texture 2D, and that's going to be the, I always call it diffuse, but let's call it base nowadays. A little bit more modern. And then emission. Okay. I had that name already. Emission texture. base texture. And the only reason I'm doing this is because then I can assign it in the material instead. So we'll drag base texture there, drag this one to there, emission texture, and drag this one to here. Control S to save it. And now if I go to the spaceship, I need to assign the, okay, save asset. Come on. Now we drag, first I'll just do the same one to make sure it looks the same. Emission, there. Control S, and then there we go. Looks pretty similar to it did before. Right there. I forgot that module apparently. Control D. No, put that there. Control D. And then manually just change that one. And that one was a little bit rotated, so I'm guessing I have to do... Nope. That's okay, because it was on the same axis. And so that looked pretty much the same. Now we'll just go spaceship, drag this bike texture in there. That could look hideous, probably. And for the emission, it probably wouldn't work because the emission is a different texture, but never mind. And then we'll try to change the tiling. See what we've got. I'll go into the game view instead and change the camera fob. Okay, I forgot that little front wing. That doesn't look so good. Control D, and I'll do the other method here. So I've already shown how to do it properly, but scale it -1. That's this other alternative. Why did it not work? So Shift, Control D. Oh, I've duplicated it loads of times now. Delete. Control D, and okay, move it and flip it. Oh, okay, because I had it on a different axis, maybe. Oh no, it's on rotation. That's fine. So there. And I think I like the other. This one is a little bit too busy. Maybe I have to lower the tiling a lot more instead. Don't know. Didn't like any of those. So let's go back to the old texture. There you go. And now I don't like that one either. So this is the downside when you do random stuff. Save often. Until you find something that you like. Maybe the emission is too strong. There you go. So, I think let's do control. It's a bit trickier to edit in here, I'd say, than it is in Unity, because now in Blender, because now if you wanted to do something, you'd have to do it manually. And again, that's why I did that editor. That I did an editor extension in Unity that just does all that for you. So if you had something, you'd just copy the other one and mirror and use the equivalent there. But you could do the same method here if you want to definitely model them like that. And we'll just change this one to the R again. And then apparently there. So that works still. Okay. That's it. Zepfizz, Imphenzia, I love your content, bro. Keep it up. And this is the first stream I catch successfully. How many have you caught unsuccessfully? But you're very welcome. Thanks for joining. And we've got Night Lurk. I spent approximately 3 weeks headbanging against that problem. And last night, after cleaning up the code, I ended up with about 10 lines in total. That's nice. I probably caught that from the wrong end. Oh, about the negative scaling or something. Yeah, so you can scale by -1, but again, it's something to do with if you had the sub-attached objects there, that could be a problem. Left front wing. Oh, have you not been chatting for a while? Left front wing is missing. So maybe you've been super inactive. 35 people are watching. What's happened to my streams? It used to be 400. Come on, guys. I'm only joking. Maybe not so many people are interested in Unity after all. But that's the actual the video that's got the most views. So, but maybe they're not so much live viewers. But I think that's a message for me. So I think that was pretty good. Static batching, yeah, that would be nice. Let's see if there's no attachment points, meaning a parent A has a object of female connector and parent male connector. Okay. I haven't tried with the attachment points, but it makes sense to have that for something like wings and stuff, so you know where stuff can be connected. Oh, okay, it's 58 now. So people, thanks for telling your friends now to join in. I'm happy about that. All right, folks, I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight how the workflow is to go from Blender into Unity. So last week we did the modules, so if you, again, want to watch those, you could check out last week's stream. And this is how I bring stuff in when I create games. The nice way to get them in like this is that they're quite breakable now. So when you have a spaceship like this, you can literally just have these objects being broken off. So when you shoot this wing, you could just detach it and attach a rigid body. So if you wanted it that way, you could have it so when it's get hit by maybe a few, like reduces some hit points, if you put a script for that, it'll detach it, unparent it from this one, and then just send it flying off. So I did that for a little shoot 'em up game that I did for Ludum Dare as well, a top-down shooter where you like a survival thing. So, and you probably want to do this as well. You want to create it into a prefab. So folder, prefabs. Again, how you want to sort them is up to you. And then you just drag this one now. Let's rename this Spaceship. And drag this one into there. And now you've created a prefab out of it. So if you delete it here, not to worry, you can copy it in. And again, I realize something a bit silly here. And that's because I've got all the objects could probably move back like this. So shift select them, because you want to have the pivot point usually where the, let's see if I do there, you want to have the pivot point so it rotates maybe around the cockpit. Maybe that's still too far. So mark those, bring them back to there maybe, and rotate. That's probably a better pivot point there. I keep pressing 7 on the keypad to get a top-down view. Doesn't work. But you can do this in Unity. You can click there instead. That's the same thing. Alt. And Alt-R doesn't work either. So there you go. Rotate. A better pivot point there. And when you have this one, when it's in a prefab as well, it's this blue. It's like a prefabricated object. It's like a package, so you can reuse it. So you could drag it into anywhere. And that also goes if you've got scripts and stuff enabled. So if you wanted to change the look of one ship, you'd have to do a new material. I could copy this material here, Control D, because you can't change the same one. And then you need to reassign all of those objects here. So let's go for that spaceship, mark those, grab that one, replace the material, and then change the slider. Because if you change the slider, otherwise it would change it on all of the objects. So if you want to have a different look, you could do that. Offset like that. Oh, that looks nearly the same. Let's make it look different. There. So, because if I change this one, it would change on all the ships, everyone's that's sharing. But remember then as well that these are two materials, so we spoke about before that Unity automatically batches things. If I go into the game view, maybe we can look at that one and see if it does any batching. Doesn't always work exactly as expected. Maybe we can move the camera. There, if we do stats now, usually you should be able to see set pass calls there, batches 340, saved by batching 0. So we spoke about the criteria a little bit about when it would batch and not. And I would have expected, since it's using the same material and it's using the same meshes, that it should have batched. Wonder if it's something I need to do. So first of all, I'm going to enable GPU instancing. Display. So that didn't work either. Usually it says as well, let's try one thing. So if I go to analysis, here's a really powerful thing. You can do frame debugger. Enable. Press play. And then pause, I think. Click enable. I'm going to try to fit it on the screen at the same time. Now you can see everything, how Unity renders these things up. Draw opaque objects, where are we? Post render. Draw mesh dynamic. It should say somewhere here if it batches it or not, or why it did not batch. Is it a newer version from what I know? So I don't really know. Draw mesh. Set pass calls. I'm just gonna try to figure out on the fly why it doesn't work. Usually you see every objects being rendered one by one. I've never done this in the URP either, but depth. Okay, why this draw call can't be batched with the previous one. First call from a scriptable render loop job. Depth normal prepass, okay. Okay, I cannot answer, unfortunately, why that is the case. It looked like it did batch all of this, because they came in one. Usually you see object by objects being drawn up. Screen space, ambient occlusion. Okay, I'm gonna stop speculating. So, can't answer why it doesn't batch yet. Look at set calls, not batches. Yeah, but set calls is set pass calls, you mean, or? Because usually that's how many times it needs to pass information to the shader, and that's something you should definitely optimize as well to try to reduce those. And you want to do draw instance, batched and stuff like that. But usually saved by batching, I would have thought. Let's see, if I try to make these static, maybe I think that's probably what it is as well. But the whole point with dynamic batching would be that it wasn't... let's just see if it does it. Yeah, so save by batching 316. The problem is now you can't really move them. So 37 batches and instead of all of those individual ones. Set pass calls is still expensive. You want to try to reduce that one. So, but moving stuff to static. But it would work good if you have furniture, for example, or something. But usually I always do furniture in a house. I want to, like, the characters to be able to interact with everything. So usually it doesn't work for me either to put stuff static. But if you have stuff in the world that you do not plan to animate or move, then you can mark them as static and it would batch them. But again, I would have thought that it would have batched those. I think I also read somewhere that if scaling is changed, it could affect as well whether it batches or not. Okay, so you need to enable dynamic batching in settings. I thought that was enabled by default. Project settings. Would it be in graphics? No. Quality. Or sometimes it could be in the build settings too, right? Some of the stuff is moved there. Let's see. And usually at this point, instead of searching, I just Google it. And usually that's a faster way to do it. Well, let's check build. Oop. It could be hiding a different stuff. It could be build settings, it could be project settings, it could be settings for the actual camera. here, player settings, sometimes it hides. Okay, so there's the player settings. Static batching is on. Oh, why isn't it not enabled by default? It's got an asterisk there. That's a much more efficient way to do it. I have to make sure that we got that one for Unity, for Line War, but I think we do. Okay, so did I miss it? Maybe it's here somewhere. I would have expected it to be close to static batching. Static. Fix job. Can you guys see it? Oh yeah. Smart. Doesn't seem to be in there. So I usually end up doing this. Unity 2022 dynamic batching. So it's supported in the URP, and it was other settings. So so project, why didn't it come up when I search in other settings, dynamic batching? Okay, why don't I see it then? Am I blind? Dynamic. Am I blind or something? Am I on the right version of Unity? 2022.2, but it's pretty close. That hasn't changed in like forever, so. No, that's all right. I was just curious to see it now, actually. It's a valid point because people ask a lot about performance anyway. I was just surprised that I couldn't see it. Now I'm getting frustrated because it said they were supposed to be in here, didn't it? Static batching. Oh well, I'll have to give up then. I hate to give up. Oh well, I'll won't waste your time on that one. It said that URP had dynamic batching actually. Mop. Never mind. I won't waste your time on that one. All right, folks, that's it. This is the shortest live stream I've ever made. 1 hour and 15 minutes, and I think we've already lost Arvid. He's in Godot world, sleeping, dreaming about those things. Dreaming about, I can't even remember what those were called instead of prefabs, but it's a different workflow. I wish I was as versatile, or like, I was going to say how I get around in Unity, and then I couldn't find dynamic batching, which I've enabled like in the past loads of times. But it would have been fun to get proficient in all three main game engines, Godot, Unreal Engine, and on Unity, maybe one day. So I'm not going to forget the outro today, and if you haven't played Line War, it's a game that I've made with a colleague of mine, and we're just about to release the new version, and it's not got any spectacular differences from the current one, but except that we've introduced cloud replays, and we've also upgraded Unity, which is actually, so for players they won't see much, but for us it meant a huge job to translate all the netcode and stuff, and it's been a bit of a nightmare, but we're getting there. So yeah, Andreas Brillen saying here, probably fell asleep, it's past 8, yeah, still typing somewhere. Wait, he's probably sleeping somewhere. All right, folks, I'm not going to forget the outro. So until next week, have a great one, and we're probably going to be back in Blender next week again. We'll figure out what to do. Still not sure, but we'll find out. So until next week, have a great one, and I'll see you then. Bye. Hold on, I need to switch off my music before I put the outro on. Very well planned this. If you got any last questions, you can squeeze them in while I stop the music. No, you won't. You won't make it. You won't make it. All right, here we go. Bye!